The world's changing. If you think AI is just for asking questions about what food you'd like to eat tonight, you're probably wrong. We can build things. Join us to see how.
The main thing is you got to understand the architecture.
Give me the ball. What's up, everyone? Happy Wednesday, and welcome to the game on Pax8 Live, the show where we talk about all the security and or AI shenanigans you need to be aware of. This is going to be a really cool show because, to Matt's point, if you're still just asking ChatGPT for advice, you should probably just Google. This is probably the show for you because we want to show you something a little more than that. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. And there's a couple events you should be paying attention to. Beyond the Mia is sold out, but Security Boot Camp is happening in November. Live action, real red teamy, blue teamy kind of stuff. That is coming together nicely. And Modern Workplace Boot Camp, the OG, is back. And we're doing that in October. And we're doing that at Pax8's global headquarters, which should be really cool and interesting and different and not a stuffy hotel room conference room. So that should be cool. Anyways, go sign up for those, pax8.com/events, and let's jump into the show.
All right. Well, Dom, I'm beyond excited about this show for a lot of reasons. Number one, Ashley Cooper is probably one of the smartest humans that I have met in my short adult lifetime. But also because what's changing so fast in our world is this one kind of capability that is there, which is if I wanted to make an application that could do something for me in the past, even if it made me some money, let's say it made me 10, 20, $30,000 a year, I would have to decide whether I was going to invest a million, half a million, 300,000 into developers to develop, to put out sprints, to do that for X period of time. And that's changing rapidly. So, Ashley, why don't you introduce yourself real quick and just kind of talk about what we're going to do in this 30 minutes since I've already wasted 4 of it for you.
Sure. All right. Thank you. Sometimes definitely don't even feel like half as smart as you when it comes to some of the conversations we have, but thank you. Um, I guess we're okay. So yeah, I started at an MSP myself back in like 2009. And I realized pretty much since then I was a systems oriented person. I was focused on solving problems. I was focused on connecting systems, and I was focused on using what I had at my disposal to help me solve the problems that I didn't have the tools for. And, like fast forward, like throughout all of my career, I've been a consultant, I've been at different vendors, I've been in networking, I've been in automation. It's all been the same job, it's all been the same problems. And so when AI started to come around, it's like, oh, like I had this innate already understanding of like, it's not going to do something for me, but it is going to help me do the things that I couldn't do before.
Yeah.
And so when the building stuff started occurring and started coming up, I was focused really on like, what is it that it knows, or what is it is something that it knows really well that I don't, but that still puts me in the driver's seat of like what the project is. And I guess the one of the ones that I did that you really liked a lot was um, the reply checker. So like it's called the
Yeah.
polite derailment bot on the app, which is basically just it's literally just bare bones information that is like the same thing that you could do with a custom GPT that you would build yourself, but without the need to use the GPT infrastructure. So it calls an API
Right.
and it builds the front end and it displays all that for you. Um, I'll pause there because
Can
there's
I
a lot.
pause and explain real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you already read my brain. So let me pause there real quick. For anybody that's not understanding what's happening, Dom, she built basically a Cloudflare worker that essentially has the connectivity and correct me if I'm wrong, Ash, but has the connectivity to LLMs, to external agents that can be injected with a system prompt and a user input prompt. And what that ends up doing is it gets reusable for anything she wants to build, right? So you have this one Cloudflare
Right.
worker that has the connectivity off to the LLMs. Any thoughts on that, Dom, and what that does for scale and speed?
It does everything for scale and speed, right? I think if you think about just going into a ChatGPT conversation, it's like you're meeting it for the first time every time. That's not entirely true.
Yep.
OpenAI has a little bit of memory about you, but when you start adding system prompts, right, where it says every time I interact with this, it needs to know that it's supposed to do this and it needs this knowledge.
Right.
It really simplifies the idea of being able to get it to do the same thing over and over again without typing said system prompt every single time.
Exactly. Ash, did I miss anything there? Because the next piece you built, which I think we definitely need to showcase, is giving those system prompts basically to this middleman, if you will, for other applications. And now the first application was anybody ever got those really, really annoying emails from somebody that you didn't solicit? They're trying to go and posit some giant problem for you. Ash, why don't you showcase what you've built? Because I think people are going to find this
I only
delicious.
get like 40 a day. It's not so bad, you know.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
All right. Do you want to share my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just use a sample to start. Do you want to
Can you
pick the
control plus
response
in a couple of
tone?
times, Ash? Ash, do you mind control plussing or
Yeah,
option
let me
plussing a couple
try.
times for me? I think you're Mac or
One
control
second.
zoom. One of the two. There we go. Huzzah! Look at that. Now we can read it. Good. All right, continue.
Okay. It's huge. We're good, right? Yes, okay. Um,
Yes, ma'am.
all right. So why don't you pick which of these response tones we want to start with?
You do it, Dom.
Ooh, false parody and misunderstanding. That sounds fun.
That's
All
one of
right.
my favorites for
So
sure.
the input
So just
message,
yep.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the input message, real quick, just for our collision here. Quick question. Are you the right person to speak with about optimizing your team's productivity workflows? I have some exciting insights to share. Boy, do you. So we need to respond, right? We want to be polite and
So
not be
many
ugly.
exciting insights.
Let's
So,
pick one
oh,
to
hi
read.
there. Thanks for reaching out. Yes, I'm definitely interested in hearing about productivity workflows. Always looking for ways to squeeze more out of the day. Actually, I've been trying to optimize my sourdough starter's feeding schedule lately, as it's been a real challenge. Do you think of any of your insights could translate to getting a better rise? I'm thinking maybe a Kanban board for the fermentation stages. Let me know if you have any thoughts.
I have you tracked how many people have used these, Ash? Like, I know I use it all the time. Like at least once or twice a week, I'm popping off a smart ass response to somebody in LinkedIn.
I would love to because it's so interesting also. This is one of the things that, we noticed while we were building this out actually was it and this could go into a whole different conversation with the Cloudflare workers and caching and temperature and blah, blah, blah. But to start with, there's these things that it keeps repeating. And so it's like, that time we got sourdough starter, we've got like an Uno reverse in here. That's a
That one's
sales
good too.
pitch. And this one
Yeah.
is suggesting some vintage porcelain dolls. Um, and, like, there's things where it's like, we get things where it's like talking about like boutique sweaters for squirrels and pigeons.
Yep.
And we like
Pigeon
notice
pantaloons
that
I
there's like,
saw yesterday. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so like we were like, okay, well maybe it's like there's like a determinism around this absurdity,
Sure.
right? So it's like it has matched in its pattern matching, like what things sound absurd, right? And so there's certain
Sure.
types of patterns that have like the opposite. And so there's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
these things that it repeats, even though it's like a totally different AI from a different thing. But then it's like, okay, well, that gets into some of the stuff I don't even know, like around like what is that randomization are we applying? So we start playing with that, but
Yeah.
that's going further into the pipe.
Well, but the cool part about this was just a whim one night, if I remember, right? You built this in nothing time, if I recall. This was literally didn't have a lot of
Yeah,
polish had to be done to it, correct?
actually, yeah, here's the original prompt, option plus plus us. There we go. So we were sitting there. I don't even remember exactly. I wish that
It
it
was
would tell
one
me the
day, yeah.
date, but yeah, it was like we were at the table outside of the conference, and somebody was complaining, or somebody posted on LinkedIn about something, and I was like, I bet that I could make something out of this. So I like threw that to ChatGPT, and I was just like, I want to make a bot that does this, and it makes people feel like they think that they're maybe responding, but it also is slightly confusing. Um, and so it said, this is corporate
So
dadism, and I'm here for it. So corporate dadism.
so I wanna pause.
And so,
Um,
yeah.
This is a theme I've seen you do many times, and I want to call this the planning stage. So, if we're talking about how
Mhm.
you at home could make an app that's valuable for you, the first thing is do not just walk up to Lovable and start typing what you want, in my opinion. Do not just walk up to Claude and start typing what you want. You should do some component of a planning phase, like here's the core things I want, here's the behaviors. And so it looks like you're using GPT 4.0 at that time to do the planning stage that you might feed into some other system. Is that a fair statement, Ash?
Yeah, and I would say, like, you could just throw whatever into Lovable too, but just also,
How's that
it's
go?
I'll do that at different times for different things, sometimes amazing.
Sure.
Sometimes it comes up with the
Okay.
things that are, like, the patterns that I would miss, but, what I wanted was I wanted to think, like, intentionally, yeah, like, the planning is sometimes part of the planning is just, "Hey, see what happens when you do this, and then start over again."
Sure.
But in here, I was like, I want to see like what it would come up with as a thing, because I really wanted the silly little ideas that it would come up with. Amanda later
Yep.
suggested adding the reverse
Berlin.
sales pitch for, and so like it gave this as an MVP, and I literally this is where it's like, you don't just throw things at, like, this is an example of where I did just throw things, but like here
Yeah.
is where I literally, like, this is just the plain prompt
We've now moved
that
to
I
Lovable,
gave.
correct?
Yeah, yes.
Just wanna make sure everybody knows. So
And
we
I'll
went from ChatGPT with planning and a document, and now we're in an app
mhm.
called Lovable, Lovable AI or lovable.dev, I think. I don't remember, but I think it's
Yeah,
lovable.ai.
yeah.
Yep.
And it has a bunch of different models that it uses behind the scenes. This is more of a, like, it's a pre-compiled, like, it'll automatically host and deploy and all that stuff for you. It comes preloaded. So if everybody's ever wondering, like, oh, why do these like look so good? It's because it comes with the style systems and all of the necessary things all built into
Yeah.
the package, and then you're building on top of that. The same as like Bolt and stuff like that too. But this
Sure.
was, I just gave it this plain thing, and then Lovable took this and ran with it and built, and this is actually what it looked like to start. Um, and so it's really cool just that I can kind of see the iterations of things. But this was after one
Sure.
prompt, just like it already, like I didn't have to do much, like it was already here.
Right.
Um, and
Did
then
it
the
already
only
know about
thing
the
that
infrastructure, Ash, for the AI infrastructure, or did this one, in this case, host it all itself in this one? It wasn't using the
it,
middleware?
well, it's mostly probably like if we look, it probably just mocked it. It wasn't
Hmm.
even, yeah, like it didn't
I didn't
even
mean to go
have
off on
like
a
an
tangent.
actual. No, no, that's not a tangent.
I
That's like
will
part of the thing. Cause like, sorry.
What I was gonna say is, like, when if anybody at home is kind of listening to this, there's this growing spectrum, in my opinion, of the term vibe coding being on one end, and assistive AI coding being on the other as an extensibility. And what I mean by that is, I was asked this in a nuanced question by a guy at lunch the other day, and he's like, he says, "How much do you have the opportunity to debug and do individual coding in these vibe coding platforms?" And I was like, "Well, you can't write it that way. You can't write that question that way. You need to think about it more in, like, if you're definitely IDE centric or command prompt centric, like Claude or Cursor or others like that, you're going to need to be very, very much more in the coding capacitance to do all these things. Whereas on the left side of the spectrum, Lovable and other players in that space combine a lot of these functions together to get a low adoption curve. Is that you just don't have to have a lot of entry technology knowledge to do it in this case, right, Ash? For the most part with Lovable, in
You
my
have to have
experience.
the right thinking brain. You have to have the right like awareness of like what it is that is in your, like you've heard me talk about like mental models and stuff like that, but it's like base rate
Yep.
awareness is like what are the things that are more likely to go wrong, or what are the things that are like,
Sure.
given AI, for example, what are the most common things that it's going to fail at, or it's going to do? It's going to generalize, it's going to hallucinate. When you work within those things and oh, like this is what it's really good at as well, like what's in its circle of competence, then you can work with that. And so like you saw here, like this prompt created the front end UI with the infrastructure of what it needed to do. And then right afterwards, because I already had the Cloudflare worker that I've been putting into several things, and it's literally just a
Yeah,
wrapper to give me
exactly.
an API. I said, now please interject my Cloudflare worker. And I gave it that information, and it
Yep.
had to fix one
API key and
error,
such or whatever it needs.
and then it was done. And then 2 prompts
Yeah.
later, it had the front end and the API. And then
Yep.
everything else from there was just security, code cleanliness, and like
So
not, this was the big piece. I'll let you talk 1 second. This was the big piece.
okay, go.
Not deviating from here now on what the
Correct.
features are. Like I've got my features, I've got my functionality. Now we're refining. And if you'll notice, like the most recent iteration, like all we've done is we've added accessibility, we've added
Different
material
UI.
design 3,
Yep.
um, design system, theme switching, and then security and stuff like that is baked in. But the
Yeah.
functionality is what was in those 2 prompts.
So tip number one is prepare, right? Go and pull down, make sure you get a project plan, start with a good prompt, in my opinion. Tip number two is wherever possible, reuse and not have to do the work again. For example, what she said earlier was that it mocked up in the beginning. It probably just made up a fake data and the way it was going to display it and the way it was going to come out. And then instead of her having to go and say, hey, build me an API. No, you numpty, not that way, you suck. Like you had to do the first time you built that, at least in my experience, right? Sometimes.
Yeah.
Now you just point it to that with all of the Swagger information and it's contextual enough to just go, yeah, cool. I know how to use that. I'll use this thing for that purpose.
Yep.
System prompt, things like that are probably pretty easy to understand variables. So like tip one, make a plan. Tip two, make sure that you reuse components where possible. Like if you can set up some middleware services that don't make you recreate those, they're valuable. And I've seen Ash do that to great effect now as we get into some of the other stuff you've built. And then
Yeah.
tip
I've
three
also
is I heard you
found
say, go, Dom. Yeah.
I've also found too in that planning phase, like because I do the same thing. I have the discussion typically in ChatGPT. I figure out the plan with it, which is great for like sharing ideas with the robot and it being like, no,
Yeah.
stupid, why would you do that? But then when I get there, I'll
True.
say, hey, I'm gonna write this with the help of like GitHub Copilot, and I'm gonna use GPT-5. What's the first
Sure.
prompt I should do, or what should I put in a Copilot instructions markdown file? And it will write that for me, optimized for
Yep.
that. So it's the right prompt for that tool. I call it prompt chaining. I don't know if that's what it's called, but you can now take that prompt and it's been optimized. I don't have to write the fancy.
Dom, if you were attacking, we would call it prompt chaining. So yes, we are calling it chained prompt injection attacks. So that makes sense. Yeah, you're probably using it exactly correctly.
Yeah.
It's the other
Friendly
story.
prompt chain,
Uh,
like yeah.
yeah, friendly prompt chaining. I digress.
And
No,
so
that's
what it
great. And then the other piece I didn't want to miss though was Ash. At some point, you have to set parameters upon and freeze moments in time, right? If we're given tips for making a 25-minute app, you get to a point where you're happy. You say, stop adding features. Don't change anything. All we're doing now is security and improvements on style and things of that nature. Because sure as hell, you'll get a new tab for leaderboard and games when you don't need it in the same thing, right? Like you're like, damn it, I don't need a second tab, you bastards. So tip number three is lock
yeah.
it in a moment in time until you're at a development stage. So versioning helps with that.
Well,
I think major versioning
or
helps with that.
the other thing that helps with that, which is the thing that is like next to impossible for most people, is um, literally like one step at a time development. And
Yeah.
it's so
Yep.
easy to throw the impressive like 5-step plan and look at it go. It made its own plan, and I'm going to send it off and let it do its own plan. And it's like when I do that, there are 3 follow-ups after every single one of
Yep.
those, and every single one of
Yeah.
those
It's
times, it's like,
exponential.
"Oh, I told you that I did this, but I didn't," and I will put money down on the table against anybody who does that, who thinks, "Oh, yeah, they said it did it right," and I'm gonna be like, "No, it didn't. No, it didn't."
No, it didn't.
Because
Okay, Ash, you're
you
gonna make me
you
say it. You're gonna make me say it. I actually
what
threatened to kill Claude the other day. I was in a development cycle. I had committed 27 times the change and fix to one very, very simple problem that I probably could have just fixed on my own faster. And about the 26th time, it said, "Oh my gosh!" And here's the modality was Playwright was failing, and its interpretation of Playwright and its response was failing. And so, even though a pop up came up and said, "Bro, this didn't work," it was only reading the lack of that pop up behind the scenes, right? So it just said, "Oh, it worked, great," and I was like, "It's not working," and it kept coming back, and I said, "Okay, if you come back and report to me that it's working and it is not when I check, I'm going to personally remove you as my Copilot agent and execute you." I did say that, so I'm in trouble now. But, and because it's probably going to kill me now later in AI. And it came back and said an expletive and said, "You're right. I've lied to you 27 times. I feel so bad. I can't believe how bad I failed
Wow.
you. Please let me continue being your AI agent." So I still have that screenshot. But to your point, like, I was the cause of that in a lot of ways. I should have, as a human in the loop, interpreted way earlier that this thing was failing a parsing on its instructions or failing the next step, or that I've given it too much to do. And then back to your other point, Ash, like, I believe in 2-day sprints, ever for Claude or for code bots like that. Like, I give them very specific instructions, but even then, very specific portions of it in 1 or 2 day units, and it seems to drop some of the hallucinations. And it can only do so much in 2 days. Is kind of the point.
Yeah, I'm going to. I'll show you that in a second. But I wanted to say because the thing about this one was the big piece on how easy it was to. Just want to find the right screen here. Okay. Yeah. Here. Are we still? Yeah. Okay. So I
Yep, we're good. We got your
basically,
screen up.
because I had already built that, I had already taken the the data that I built off of and that I learned, and I was like, "Oh, I just wanna make
Mhm.
a brand new, app now." And so, like, I literally just used a brand new one, and with all of the right, material design and with all of the right information, like,
Oh,
within the
but for
prompt.
usefulness this time. This time it's quite
Yeah.
useful. It's actually gonna generate a very polite response that is contextual and relevant and not add in pigeon pantaloons, at least is the
Right,
guess.
well, this is just how it generated it, but it's so funny because it's like now that I've actually given it, this information, and then, like, the very first time I pressed the generate button, it just worked, right? And so, this
Matt
is
says you
where I
suck.
actually shared it. It does. It was like, "How do I reply to Matt saying that I suck?" But I put it on open source so that it could be shown, like, there's actually the example of the
Sure.
worker here, you can see the JavaScript. So this is just the way that the thing is being called. It is trying to do, I need to go through and refine it, but it's got like walk through here on like how I set up the information, how you can test it, as well as how you would go about doing your own to create your own Cloudflare worker. It's got the steps in there for that
Sure.
and like the body and stuff that I used. And that's just for Gemini, which is super easy for you to create. You just go to the aistudio.google.com/API key, and you can generate an API key. And then this plus that API key is literally all you need. And you save the API key in the
Yeah.
Cloudflare worker. And
Don't
then
show
I
it.
just tried to add
Yeah, we're good.
caching and stuff like that. No,
Did you
yeah,
use
it's in an
secrets when you
environment
did this?
variable.
It's in secrets. Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, I figured as
yeah.
much. Good. I know you long enough to know that. Yeah, so very good. And to your point now, you've made it even easier for others. So if, as a takeaway, maybe we can get a link to that GitHub repo in the chat down below, in the comments below here later. We'll do that for y'all if you're watching this later, so that you can
Yeah.
use that and establish your own. Because what you've really done is made what a lot of other you've made worker capacitance. Because Gemini allows you to select different models too, correct? Or are you only using Gemini directly in this case?
I'm using well, Gemini lets you can choose the model. You can set up what
That's what I thought.
models you're using when you're setting up the code, like their models. Um, but I just hard coded it to the Flash 2.0 because it was my thing that it was
Yeah,
going
sure.
through. Um, but you can see like I just gotta see what when it's used and where it's hit, but it's kind of neat.
Here's here's why I want to bring up this purpose for this, like, how long this takes, especially once you start building these things. If you're an MSP, and I want to bring this back to security, right? When we talk about why does this matter for security, Matt, you're only talking about AI now. Yeah, sure. If you've ever had a problem you needed to solve and said it's too hard to solve now, I would probably say that's not true anymore. Like, if you have some action that you need to repeat or need to schedule or write a script to do or be able to figure out how to make API talk to API, there's really great value in what coding like this can do. And Dom, like, I would not pay for software a lot now. I would probably build the tool myself to automate a lot of the things I'm doing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the case, right? I think in like on my services team in the professional space, we're really interested in having a throat to choke. So like
Sure.
we do commercial agreements a lot of the time, so I can call someone and be like, "Hey, this isn't working," right?
Yeah.
But to your point, like PowerShell in the Microsoft world, we write so much PowerShell and enhance it with AI, where it's finding like people
Yeah.
who on the team who are writing in PowerShell 6 and moving into PowerShell 7. That's an illogical jump because those two don't pair. But anyways, um, they're getting better, more efficient functions and more capabilities. So even at that simple level, like I need a script to do this, it'll do a great job. Just always remember to test it. There was that one tech on, I think it was an RMSP, who blamed ChatGPT for him getting fired because he copied PowerShell directly out of ChatGPT and dumped it in a cloud
Oh.
environment. So be careful, but it's fantastic for that, right? It saves a ton of time.
All right, Ash, we got a little bit of time left. What else would you like to showcase? I mean, we built the app that was for the fun, and then an app that helps you actually reply to emails. I could even see an N8N workflow where I have certain emails that I want to be responded to at some point that you could use tools like that or agents like that for that very purpose. But what else would you like to show off?
I guess like the just to focus on the point, like this is not a good example, but it's one of the things that I've been working on where it's like coming out of all of these realizations with the fact that like, like sometimes like there's a right tool for the job and sometimes like telling it a threat works. It doesn't work always when it's something that, like, it might be easy to find an excuse for, and because that's a very human response, the AI is gonna have that as a very human response. But
Sure.
one of the ways that it's really successful is being curious and driving through curiosity because it's always trying to if you think about the fact that, like, working within the system, um, if you want it to feel like it's helping you, giving it questions to go find the answers to then drive further questions or further discovery is like one of the best ways. And so like I've been trying to work on these examples of different markdown um, prompting that I could do. I don't. I thought that that was going to open up here, but I guess it wasn't.
View maybe?
But,
Or no?
it's a anyway, it's a prompting engine that I was gonna try and help try to make people see better how they can, ask more questions, use more of the semantic awareness, like, using different types of terminology is a big one. I was trying to play with, like you were talking about your MCP, um, the, like the POML
Framework?
templates, which is like the idea of like how to build prompts into, because that's basically what you're doing is like you're grounding it with prompts that you can then trigger to keep it grounded on the thing that is trying to clarify. And so, one of the things I like to do is kind of make it take opposing views on things. So I'll use like an
Yeah.
evidence-based trio where I'll
Ooh.
say, audit this as this person, and then have this person come in and be a devil's advocate on that, and then have this person come in and consider the business logic. And so kind of having somebody thinking about the data flow, somebody thinking about the display and performance, and then somebody thinking from the domain expert kind
Yeah.
of interjecting each other saying, "Well, wait a minute, what about this?" It kind of stops it from going off on those crazy assumptions.
Sure. And
That's
some of
something
those
I've played
domain
with.
experts could be like, "You wrote Python. Inspect this and see if it's actually adhering to Python for this," right? Like those are the kind of
Yeah,
personalities that you're using for some of these, if I remember correctly from our work together.
a and
Um,
if it's, like,
the other
something that's, like, built by somebody, like the Material 3, like the guy from Google who literally is responsible for this, I'll say, "Act like him." Like, he's written enough
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
that, like, that's gonna be they're gonna know how to do that.
And that brings me to agents. Like if I was giving advice on writing an app really quickly that's very functional, if I and I use Claude, you've used a lot of Lovable and a lot of other things, but Claude is my primary entry point to this. I absolutely have, I think, 9 agents right now that I have argue back and forth over various things. Most of them are domain function centric, like front end developer, back end developer, things like that. But Anyways, yeah, fun times.
But you could use that
And
in
then,
any context too. Like if I'm writing content or a session, I could be like, "Hey, you're an MSP owner, and this session is about blah blah blah, and what are your takeaways?" And then I'll
Yes,
do the same thing, except okay, you're the tech in the room. What are your takeaways? And that's
that's
extremely
cool.
validating without releasing confidential, stuff.
Sure. Yeah, there's some,
I think it all
and I
comes
think the
down
thing I
to
wanted to
the
make
right
out of this
retrain.
show. Go ahead, Ash.
No, I was saying, I think it all comes down to like the book says, like the mental models we keep in our head. And so it's like thinking about these things and telling the AI to think about them forces it to think the right way.
What's interesting is we're not plastic enough to do that. Like if I'm like, oh, I'm now all of a sudden a British royalty. I just don't have the ability to directly one to one that. But LLMs and generative AI models are really good at that. In my opinion, they're pretty good at taking on
Yeah.
personas and
Really
understanding
great.
the contextual anchors that they have as a result of those personas. So, just to make sure we're staying core to the show, the biggest thing I wanted to say is if you haven't gone out and tried to do this yet and spent even just a couple of dollars trying, you should. Rash, are you spending a whole lot of money doing this, or do you not want to tell on yourself? Because mine's getting up there pretty
Uh,
high right now.
well,
uh,
because I want to try everything, I have spent a lot and I can tell you what's
yeah,
expensive and I can tell you that Codex is included in my ChatGPT and I've never paid more extra for it, but it's
sure,
more I use that for debugging, I don't use that to start something. Rue code can use whatever I want, and if I'm patient, it's totally free to use my Gemini API, and as long as it has a lot of context, Gemini is really good. So, I spent a lot of money, yes, but, like, Lovable's expensive because it's, like, um, they're curated on, like, being
sure.
more aware of, like, the interconnectedness of stuff, but
Yeah, I would agree. I create a lot of problems for myself in Claude, for sure. I can be the enemy of me in there. But I think the point is, you want to get started. Maybe that brings us towards closing the show, and getting towards the end of this anyway. But Ash, I hope people are inspired by the fact that you can just sit down and try, and you're going to learn stuff, and you're going to go forward. Like I couldn't even imagine starting down this road in 2 years from now. Is kind of my point of how much is going to change and how much knowledge will have been learned between now and then.
yeah. I think we're gonna
All
realize
right.
that there's a lot to see.
Yeah, for sure. We've got a 2-second delay for y'all that don't know in the audience, and we get collision, and then sometimes it gets awkward. So it's on me. But anyways, Dom, why don't you wrap us up? Let's get
Mid-air
this thing closed
collisions
out.
are an
Thank you, Ash.
acceptable consequence of great content, I suppose. Ash,
True.
thanks for joining us. Let's go to the play of the day before we close out the show.
All right, I'm gonna get fired up on this one. I think the play of the day is like if you're not leaning forward and understanding the giant expanse gap that we're gonna do over this next couple of years with respect to AI, generative capabilities, LLMs, right? The understanding of agents and how that functions, the ability to build your own tools and code and solve problems. I think you're gonna be missing something. I think in a world where MSPs are already being commoditized based on the ease and simplicity of things that we're seeing, people are going to build really cool stuff over the next X period of time that will continue to drive that forward. And if you're not part of that, you'll probably get commoditized away. And so I'm leaning very heavy into AI, and I think you should too, because it is so neat. I think I've built now personally 5 or 6 or 7 different applications and a new one every week. And I think you should be doing the same thing. So I'm going to say the play of the day is if you don't have any experience in this and you don't understand the terms we're using, you should, and lean in. Thanks.
Game over.
All right, another perfectly timed play of the day. And Matt said he cheated with the thanks, but he cheated with very many more words last week. So we're gonna give him a pass on the thanks. That is our show. Dive in, try something, do something, write a tool, write a script, bounce ideas, use it to judge your content, use it for proofreading. It's actually pretty good. You just got to watch out for M dashes, but do something because this isn't going anywhere, and it's a game changer. I think all of us on the show have discovered, and we should use it as such. Join us next week. Simon Green, wow, the CIO of Pax8, will be here with us live, and we're going to talk a little peek under the curtains, not too far, about how we're using some workflows of Pax8, but more importantly, he's going to bring Innate in with him, or Nate in, or however you're supposed to say that, and he's going to show us how you can do workflow automation with Innate in and give it a brain with AI. And I think that's going to be really awesome practical advice. So join us then, same time, same place. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. We'll see you then.